spite of the snow, and thank you for being here and wanting to learn the truth about all that has been said about the candidate that has shown up tonight, and I really want to thank him. I thought he was driving one way and staying for the weekend. I just learned, hello, James, glad you're here. I just learned when I got here tonight that he's driving both ways. So he's coming all the way from Topeka and he's going to be driving back. I think that really shows the person that's putting a lot of effort into being a good legislator. I want to give him a hand right now. What comes out of me? Anyways, that's good. So, but we're not going to go soft on you. We're going to get to the bottom of all this. So that's why we had the meeting. And someone talked to. I actually don't remember who. Somebody just told me that at 4 o'clock they talked to Patrick Penn, and that was it him, Myron? Do you want to make the announcement? He's not coming. Did he say any reasons? Did he have anything further to say?
To be fair,
I'm bending over backwards to be fair with you.
lots going on, but I heard anything good.
Okay.
I just wanted to know Pat at KRA tonight. And lots going on.
Okay. Well, I want you all to know I'm not taking sides in this race this early on. The whole reason for us selecting this topic for this meeting is because there's been so much negative press, and it is an early race, and it's certainly of interest to a lot of people. The 85th district is a proud district. After all, Debbie Baker is a precinct committee woman in that area, and she's our secretary. But besides that, Mr. Weber, what's his first name? Chuck Weber. He's now the big wheel, took over from the executive director of the Kansas Catholic Conference, who before had the governor of Texas's campaign manager running it. So I mean, it's a pretty tall cotton he walked into, and before that we had Steve Brunk in there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So this is an important seat, and there's been some, obviously, I don't need to tell you all, you've seen the news media and everything that went on, especially during the mayoral campaign. I think that, I know that some of what was said is not true, but there's this old saying that when there's smoke, there's fire. And so that's why we're having this meeting. We want to let the truth come out. This is being videotaped. And I had a number of people, we don't usually get a whole lot of traffic on these, but I've had a number of people calling today saying they're afraid of the weather, but they want to make sure that we're videotaping it because they are going to watch this one. So you're talking to the camera tonight. Beautiful. That's Lord knows how long that will last. It could last longer than you or I live. So, okay, so we're going to open the meeting here. We're ready to go. Glenn, would you lead us in a prayer to start the meeting?
Let's all stand in prayer. Father, we just thank you. Thank you, Father, for your blessings. Thank you, Father, for giving us the help to be here. Thank you for the free country that you've given us, all the freedoms. And thank you, Father, for our president. Thank you for the reprieve that you've given us. Ask, Father, for divine protection for our president and fair trial in the Senate. And Father, we just thank you for the food that you've given us this evening. And Father, just ask for your leading in this meeting. Give us godly discernment in all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, while we're standing, I want to see a show of hands of the veterans present tonight. Let's give them a hand. We have a veteran here that's over 70 years old. Raise your hand. We got 3. There you go. 4. Okay. Let's go with 75. Any veterans over 75? Raise your hand. Ellen, I think you've gotten this before, haven't you? You might have won this contest. Is there any veteran that feels senior to Ellen Weldon here? My longtime friend from, 1978 or something. So, okay, Ellen, would you lead us in a flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and Back in the, actually, in the late 60s, during the Tet Offensive, I never made it to Vietnam, but I was in Okinawa with the Air Force.
Air Force and Okinawa.
Canadian Air Force Base.
Okay, thank you for serving. Appreciate it very much. Thanks to all of our veterans here. Okay, I want to recognize some office holders tonight. We're honored to have Michael O'Donnell here tonight. And if you are a precinct committee man or an other office holder, well, hold on, we got a county chairman here, Glenn Perdue. Glenn Perdue is county chairman of Sumner County. Looking around, if you're a precinct committee man or a woman, we got Debbie Baker here, precinct committee woman, precinct, what's the number?
85.
Or you're in House District 85.
Yeah.
Precinct number would be a 3-digit, but whatever. Any other precinct committee member? Oh, Myron, here we go, I'm sorry, we got them all over here. Myron, go ahead, what's your precinct, if you remember?
I think 108.
108, thank you for serving as precinct committee man. Al?
312.
312, and Helen? 312 as well,
Right.
committee man and woman there. Okay, do we have any other person who's serving in any office capacity at all? Okay, well, thank you all, especially the office holder that we're here tonight to listen to. Thank you, Mike Caps, again, for driving down here in this bad weather and for being here to speak up for yourself. And, you know, I'm almost glad the way it's turning out already, because you got a full hour to take questions from this pretty tough group, though. I'm seeing some tough questions already on looking at the faces. So. Okay, so the minutes, it looks like, Brian, you still did a great job. I know your sound was screwed up last time. Brian's got more sound than that ice maker than you can imagine, but at least he's got sound, and at least we got a complete set of those videos. As I said today, several people called about them, and that is a successful thing. We will continue the video from here on in. That is a really good thing. So I'm liking that. And I want to warn you, Michael, that could outlive you. That video stays there and it's up forever. So, like, how many of you know Jordan Peterson? You ever heard of Jordan Peterson? Yeah, more and more people are hearing about him, and you should. I think he's the smartest guy perhaps in the world right now. He started putting up videos of his classes, his college classes in Toronto about 20 years ago. And he's got, you know who he is? Jordan Peterson. Look him up on Google sometime.
YouTube, maybe?
Huh?
YouTube?
Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, most of it is on YouTube, but he's part of the intellectual dark web, what they're calling it. That's what Eric Weinstein is calling it. And so he's one of these people that'll talk for an hour and he'll spellbind you. You won't want to leave it. You want to listen to everything he has to say. So anyway, on with the meeting here. The minutes are on, and we don't have to have a vote for approval of that. On the treasurer's report, I am embarrassed to say that I did not get completed on all the things that needed to get completed. I was interrupted on 2 big items today. And so I'm going to give you a verbal treasurer's report, which Troy Newman is actually our treasurer, but I do the dirty work. And here's where we stand on the fluoride effort, which is a separate account because Democrats donate to it. We are all the way down to $29.21, which means that someone, probably me, is going to have to make a deposit to get through the end of the month on that one. So $29.21 on the fluoride effort. We are down to, on the KRA checking, we're down to 169, which, Brian, your check is good tonight, but we'll only have $69 left.
I forgot
So if
to.
anybody wants to join or throw in one of those supporting memberships, you know, the $100, the $500, or the $1,000 membership, you're sure welcome. So and that's where we are on that one. And then, of course, on the fluoride challenge account, we're doing a little better. That one stays at a fairly constant $550.86. The 86 cents is all interest. Boy, you earn interest fast these days. So some 86 cents in what, 4 years? Since 2012, it's like 2 or 3 cents of interest on the checking account. So anyway, that's going to have to suffice for the treasurer's report. I'm going to hold off on asking for approval of that. I will print everything from September to February on the next one. And there really wasn't any activity. We had to cancel the October meeting because of the the speaker's schedule, and then we typically don't have a meeting in November because it falls right on Thanksgiving, and we don't have a meeting in December because it falls right smack in the middle of Christmas, being the fourth Thursday of the month. So I will do a treasurer's report all the way through and cover every little thing. All it is bank fees and you know, a few deposits here, and there's nothing earth-shaking. So you have the totals. All right, so at this point, I'm going to introduce our 85th district member of the House of Representatives. His name is Michael Capps. He's probably, I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that he's probably among the top three popular representatives in the state right now. Mostly, but he's gonna hit me one of these times. It's because of he's had. Well, I'm the guy that had all the negative press, right? Now I find somebody. Okay, so there's three of us here. There's Michael O'Donnell, there's Mark Eason, and there's Michael Capps. All three of us have had more negative press than you can shake a stick at. So anyway, I know that just knowing that a little bit of it is not true, I'm sitting here, you know, wondering how much, if any of it's true. And so I'm really glad that Michael showed up tonight. Michael, if you would start, what I'd like you to do is you've got time, so I'm giving you your time and I'm giving you Patrick's time. What I'd like you to do is if you would start and just talk about yourself a little bit, where you grew up, a little bit. It was 10 minutes of you, okay? High school, you know, everything from A to Z, businesses. And then if you take the next 15 minutes, now that's going to be a half of your talk here. Well, let's not go 15. Let's go another 10. And if you don't need the full 10 for yourself, we can cut that a little down too. But anyway, I want you to tell about yourself, and then I want you to give us an ad hoc legislative report, because the last one we had was when we had our Speaker of the House here, Dan Hawkins, which was a great meeting, a good one to have on tape. So if you would give us an update on that, and then go right into how the Eagle, and all the media in Wichita has been, I think, they've been on you. There's no doubt about it. So, all right, let's welcome Representative.
We appreciate the invitation. So we're still in session right now, and as Mark pointed out, still got session tomorrow, and we'll get into kind of the legislative update in a little bit. So just a little bit about my background. I'm born and raised in Kansas. Actually, the only time I've been outside of Kansas was during my Air Force years, but otherwise, this has always been home. Actually, I grew up in Valley Center, just north of here, where I graduated from school at, and raised my son in the northeast part of town. He's now off to college at Washburn University, finishing up technically his senior year, so hopefully he'll be off of Dad's payroll in the next 6 months or so. We'll see. But I grew up with a single mother. It was just my mother and I growing up all my years. I never knew what poverty was because I never felt it. It wasn't until my mother passed away almost a couple of years ago, that I had a chance to kind of peel the onion back and see what Mom really made. I don't know how she raised me, but I never felt that poverty. Mom made sure I was always provided for, not only my needs, but probably most of my wants. So I think that had some hereditary passover when I was raising Chaz. You know, I don't think my son ever needed for anything, probably didn't want for a whole lot. Some might call that spoiling. I think he's doing pretty good. College, he's going to be a graduate and playing on the football team. He certainly he's doing quite well for being out there on his own right now. But anyways, beyond that, after I got out of high school, I got into IT. I was that proverbial techie, nerdy type of kid growing up, and I started getting into IT. Started working. My very first job out of high school was at Koch Industries. I got my very first exposure to market-based management from Charles Koch and his management team. Got my first understanding of what capitalism was about, and also got my first understanding of personal responsibility, because Koch Industries' philosophy always was real simple. We hired you to do a job, we expect you to do the job, we're not going to hold your hand, but if you don't do the job, we'll fire you. If you do the job, we'll promote you.
Good philosophy.
It was a pretty simple philosophy.
Yeah, I like it.
And then there's a reason why. And here's a funny thing about Koch Industries. Anybody here work at Koch? Okay, so those that work at Koch can probably attest to this. most people are either short-termers or long-termers out there. You either fit the culture and you found a place to life, or you don't fit the culture and you're out real quick. Because they have a very succinct way that they do business, and it's effective. I mean, just look at their successes. In fact, back when I was working for Coke Industries, that was before they started acquiring hundreds of companies from around the world. I mean, they're a massive conglomerate now. They're the beacon of capitalism and success. Anyways, after I left Coke Industries, I transitioned into the aviation industry. Again, still doing IT work until the infamous Y2K bubble burst. I'm sure there's a few people that remember that Y2K bubble burst. I remember setting out at Learjet on December 31st as the clock ticked towards midnight, thinking that the world was coming to an end. What was going to happen once it clicked over to midnight, and it was the biggest fizzle I think any of us ever dealt with. So I kind of got tired of IT at that point. That's when I headed off to see the world with Uncle Sam and his travel card in the Air Force. I was a radio operator that flew on C-130s doing combat search and rescue. It was a great job. I loved doing it. Hated doing it because of what it took to do it, but it was a rewarding job being able to go out, save lives, and bring them home. Was in through the 9/11 attacks. Remember very clearly where I was at when that happened. I bet everybody in the room remembers where you were at for 9/11. Mine, I had just woke up because I was in Ramstein, Germany, and was watching it on TV, and literally watched the tower fall and said, I probably ought to go wake my commander up. I think he might like to, I think he needs to know about this. And in the next few hours, the lives changed for everybody in the world. Finished up several tours overseas with the war on terrorism before I left the Air Force to come back home. Came back home only so I could turn around and sign up to be a civilian contractor to go back over there again. Paid better than when you were in the military, but I understood it, I enjoyed it, so I did some contract work overseas before I came home to finally settle back into Wichita. And that's the time that I had the opportunity to meet my now son, Chaz, who I adopted when he was 7 years old. Met him through Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and he'll tell you that I was a lifesaver, but I actually say that it was the other way around. I was 27 years old and didn't expect my life to be transformed by becoming a single father to a 7-year-old. We'll talk a little about legislative update and how that's been impacted there as well. Keep moving forward, and Chaz kept growing up. I started an IT business here in town, let it grow until we got to about 12 employees. Sold it to a larger firm. Wasn't old enough yet to retire, so had to find something else to do. Got into my current practice now in business brokerage, buying and selling other businesses while Chaz was still off to college. And along the way there, got tugged into politics because back in 2015, the lawsuits over the K-12 funding were starting to ramp up pretty heavy. And I was quite upset about them. I remember routinely arguing with the school administrators saying, we don't need more money. I've seen your budget. I know how much money you make. We can succeed with what we have, and that became a campaign slogan for my run for the school board that they will be kicking and screaming to run for. But I affectionately tell people entrepreneurship, which is something I've known since I was 16, I affectionately tell people it's a disease. If you're an entrepreneur, it's a disease. You either have it or you don't. And if you have it, it's incurable. In a similar fashion, I think politics has a similarity to it. I never had any endeavor to want to be involved in politics until I ran for that school board race, and it's like a disease in more ways than one, and I was hooked. And the ability to, make a positive impact on the community was something that you have to take that opportunity when it comes to you. Fast forward through the House races, and you get to where we're at today as the representative for the 85th district. Arguably one of the, if not the most conservative district that we have in the region. Love it. All right, that's the nutshell. How much time did I burn off of that? Hopefully not 10 minutes.
You're doing good.
I'm doing great, fantastic. Because you know what? Anytime you give a
hold
politician
it nicely from one topic to the next, you're doing great.
anytime you give a politician the chance to talk, I swear, they will hop on.
Well, this is your dream because Patrick didn't show up. So
Side note here. So freshman session, the very first session up in the legislature last year, we're all going to our committee meetings, we're going to these receptions, and the first thing everybody wants to do is, let's go around the room and introduce everybody. Tell us who you are and what you do and a little something about you. The worst thing you can do is in a room of politicians, give them a microphone.
Right.
Because it's not going to be 10 seconds. You give that microphone to a politician when you got 5, 10, maybe even 15 to 20 minutes, depending on who takes that microphone. There were meetings that we spent the whole hour just on introductions. You wonder why government's inefficient sometimes. Okay, so legislative update, because let me tell you something. There may not be a whole lot of it in the news right now. There's an awful lot going on in Topeka right now. In fact, there was a major announcement today. Some of you may not even heard about it because it's so fresh. We just rolled out a massive economic and workforce development package, Make Kansas Work. It's a package of about 6 to 7 different bills that we're starting to get into the committees to really jumpstart economic development, attracting jobs and businesses into Kansas, as well as providing some financial security alternatives that the other side of the House doesn't really like so much. We're looking for ways for people to be successful in their work. So this, really, we rolled this out while I was driving back from Topeka, so that probably hasn't even hit the news yet. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because I think everybody in the room is probably familiar with our constitutional amendment.
Absolutely, we want to hear about it.
I was going to say, that is the high point. Let's be absolutely clear. If there is one thing that this legislature has to do in 2020, we have to pass the constitutional amendment and give you the ability to make it constitutional law. So the constitutional amendment, I can't imagine anybody in here hasn't heard about it, but essentially it says that the legislature is the sole authority to regulate the abortion industry. Contrary to what the rest will tell you, it's not a ban on abortion. Yeah. It's not a ban on abortion. It is the legislature's authority to regulate. Now, I know all of you probably watched the K-12 lawsuits over the last umpteen years. It's very similar to the amendment that I'd like to see in our Constitution for K-12. That the legislature shall be the appropriators of all money. I think our Constitution already says that, but I think we need to let the Supreme Court know again that that's explicit for K-12 as well. How many in here knew that the courts were suing us?
Well,
Literally, the court is suing us. So the court, with taxpayer money.
with
So-
taxpayer money, get more
Of
taxpayer
course.
money.
So the court sued us. Just to kind of give you a little background to it, so everybody probably understands the way the K-12 was. You're not giving us enough money, we're going to go to the Supreme Court, and we're going to tell Mommy and Daddy they're going to make you give us more money. We can talk about how bad that was in a different topic. Well, the Supreme Court kind of figured, that worked really well for K-12. Maybe we should try it for ourselves. So literally we had judges sue the state of Kansas, the legislature, because we weren't paying them enough. Now here's the funny thing about that. You're suing us, so the very people that you're suing us is going to decide whether you, the judges that you work for this same organization, deserves more money. Very circular in nature. It's caused a lot of commotion, but what hasn't caught a lot of media attention is, believe it or not, this morning, actually late last night, but hit the media this morning, the Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court dismissed the lawsuit, period. Said, we're not getting involved in that. The job to appropriate money belongs to the legislature. That was the best thing. That was the first time the Kansas Supreme Court said something I actually agreed with. You're right, we appropriate the money. We decide what you're going to get. Okay, so the Supreme Court judicial lawsuits off the table, which is a good thing. Back to the constitutional amendment, though, because that's again, really what we're talking about. So, if anybody doesn't understand, the way a constitutional amendment in Kansas works is it's proposed in the chambers. It has to pass both the House and the Senate with a 2/3 supermajority. So, in the House, that's 84 votes. In the Senate, it's 22 votes. 21 votes, sorry. Anyways. Or not, 27, thank you. Simple majority is 21. They do weird things over on that side of the calculator. But, so the constitutional amendment was heard in committee. That was heard by the joint committee, a rare joint committee. Marathon committee, by the way. Fired that baby up about 9 a.m. in the morning and went all the way through the end of the day, and even carried it into the following day. But on Thursday of this week, so yesterday, the bill was kicked out of committee. That's a good thing. Kicked is a good word in this sense. Kicked out of committee, which means it's now going to the full House and the full Senate for a full debate. Let me tell you, it's going to be a debate. We have a Democrat representative here in Sedgwick County that is planning to offer 25 amendments. Now, just to put this in perspective, assuming we had no amendments, 0 amendments, the debate on this bill could easily go 3-4 hours easy. But every one of those amendments is equally debatable, because every amendment will require a thumb up, thumb down vote. This may very well be the longest debate that the House is ever going to have had. But it's also arguably the most important debate. We're finding solidarity and unity within the party. We're even trying to reach across the aisle to some of our common sense Democrat colleagues who just simply saying, look, it should be the voters that decide. All we're doing is saying we want the voters, the people of Kansas, to be able to make a decision. What do they want their Constitution to look like? Why would you deprive the citizens, the very people who put you in this office, from the ability to make a decision as important as this? I want you to just kind of put something in the back of your mind for a moment, or think about this. This is probably not the most ideal night to reference it on, but you know, we've got a new puppy, a new little boxer puppy. And so the image in my mind is that, you know, on an evening like this when it's not snowing, if I was out walking my little puppy down the road, I happened to walk by a house. This house has flames just pouring out of it. And I knew that house had a child in it. I'm pretty confident I know what each one of you would do, the same as I would. I'd hope that each one of you would run into that house and save the child. It's got flames pouring out of it. You might get burned. You might even singe some of that hair off. Mark may not even have as much as he's got now. But knowing that it's the right thing to do, I believe that most of us will do. Every single day in Kansas, there are 15 burning houses with that child. 15 of our children are killed every day in this state. And I'm asking my colleagues, are you prepared to run into the House and save them? This vote is that critical. This is the most defining vote that our legislature will ever take, especially in my lifetime and arguably our state's history. In fact, there's colleagues of mine that are going to support this. They will lose their seats. And they're prepared to do what's right.
It's worth it.
It is. When you have principles and you're prepared to stand on those principles at all costs, this is the time that we're rallying and we're saying, this is not about politics. This is about our children. This is about our state's future. 15 children every single day. Do the math. Those are our mothers and fathers that won't be mothers and fathers. To every pro-choice, pro-abortion person in this state, the only thing I can look at them and say is, thank God your parents didn't think like you. Thank God your parents valued life more than obviously you do. We're not mincing words on this. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If the discussion about the constitutional amendment offends somebody, I'm not apologetic for it. If you're offended by it, then it probably indicates that you're convicted that you are wrong. So whoever your representative is, and I know not everybody in the room here is the 85th, so if you want to move up to the 85th, come on up. But whoever your representative is, reach out and encourage them. If they're not supporting the amendment, challenge them. Challenge them on why they think it's okay to kill 15 of our kids every day. But hopefully, if they're one of those supporting the amendment, as I am, thank them, encourage them, because there's an awful lot of them that are getting a lot of pressure. This won't be in any mainstream media report that you will read, but I will tell you now there are 41 Democrats in the House. And Governor Kelly called each individual Democrat into her office and was very clear. You vote for this, I will find a primary person. You will not be here next year. She is on a full court press to try to destroy this constitutional amendment. Yes, ma'am.
She has no veto right in this matter.
Yes, to clarify that real quickly, once we pass 2/3 in both chambers, it goes immediately to you, well, in August, for you to vote. And anybody asking about the August vote, simple majority. 50% of our state voting plus one. All it requires. Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say, I know the governor has quite a bit of power, but sometimes it's in the wrong way. But the thing is, if she requires that, which will save a life, running into a building that's burning, why is she for abortion?
I can't speak for the governor. I think that's a question I would ask the governor. I would ask the governor why anybody's life is more valuable than somebody else's life. We have a responsibility in our state, I believe, to protect our born and unborn. We have a responsibility to protect all life. But right now, we're focusing on making sure that our unborn are protected. Okay, other legislation, and we can circle around to questions on the constitutional amendment too if you want, but other legislation, did you bring up?
Well, last one, or not, on the Constitution.
Yeah.
The other night I was at the Republican Senate Committee meeting.
Okay.
And the question was brought up by a lady sitting beside me. She said, is there anything that the court can do once if it's passed, assuming it passes, that we get the 50% plus one vote,
Oh.
this becomes part of the U.S., part of the Kansas Constitution. It's not appealable to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's not,
No, okay, so-
what happens from
So,
there?
to put something in perspective here, first of all, if the constitutional amendment, strike it, I don't like that. When the constitutional amendment is passed, it does not ban abortion in Kansas. The Supreme Court earlier this year ruled that our Bill of Rights contains an inherent right to the abortion.
But it didn't.
That was I agree with you 100%, but that's what this Supreme Court ruled. So what we have said,
Kansas Supreme Court.
Kansas Supreme Court, yes. What we've said is that the legislature exclusively shall regulate. Here's the problem: what they ruled on, and a lot of you probably were following the dismemberment abortion, bill that we passed, and that's really what was kind of drawing this out. The ruling from the Kansas Supreme Court now allows them to undo everything, even common sense items. For example, parental notification would be deemed unconstitutional because of this ruling by the Kansas Supreme Court. We're reinstating an amendment that says that our laws are the law of the state. Now, until Roe v. Wade is overturned, which it is still the law of the land at the moment. Keep praying, please.
Jump into the federal now.
I am, that's the federal, but until we overturn Roe v. Wade, abortion is legal in this country. That doesn't mean that we can't regulate it, which Kansas, very aggressive about regulating it, and I'm very glad that we are. But it's a regulation until Roe v. Wade is overturned. Now, if Roe v. Wade hypothetically was overturned, what Kansas would do, I can't tell you. That could be to leave the status quo in place, or some of us would be probably apt to introduce an all-out ban. But I can't tell you what the future's going to look like. I can tell you what we're fighting for right now. Yes, sir?
I just seen a deal on Facebook the other day. There was men and women that went out in different crowds and protests and stuff, and it was asking people, what is the #1 killer of women in the United States? And most of these people didn't understand. Well, #2 was heart disease. #1 is abortion. And these women, there's men and women asking these questions. Oh, well, it's a fetus, and you women are killing your fellow women.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want something out here.
It's insane, and people don't even, it is so bad, and the moral wrong
It
is
is.
so bad.
So on my jacket, I've got a couple of little baby feet here. You might be able to see the pink and the blue up here. Some people just think that it's it's cute. It's not cute. These are genuinely reproductions of a 10-week-old baby. Not a 10-week-old fetus. Not an it. A 10-week-old child. This is the size of them. They're very tiny. By the way, anybody wants some baby feet? Well, my staff knows I got plenty of them, and I would love to give them out. I have all the colors you want. These are to remind me, in particular, but hopefully remind others, when we're discussing this amendment, when we're discussing any legislation, the 10-week-old deserves to be heard too. The 10-week-old has defined feet. They're not just blobs. There's toes. In fact, those toes wiggle. It's a child. And if you do what God intended, that child will move from unborn.
Every one of us went through that stage.
We did. We did.
At this stage of the game, what's the best way to contact the legislators?
Best thing to do is exactly what I said a minute ago, is regardless of, so every legislator is different. I tell you there's 3 key ways to do it. Send an email. Believe it or not, I actually do read all of my emails. And for the record, I respond to every email that comes to my district. I read every email that comes through. It's daunting. About 300 plus emails a day that we get. So email is one method. Phone calls work. Our office assistants will take down the message for you. If you want them to call you back, or if you want to just leave a message, a lot of my constituents will say, I just support or don't support such and such. Some legislators pay attention to that. The best way, but it's also the most inconvenient way, travel to Topeka. Demand an audience with your representative. Let me tell you something. When a constituent, a voting member of the district shows up, your representative will make time for you. Your senator will make time for you. Because we're accountable and answerable to you. And if not, it tells you exactly how you're going to vote the next time around. So that's the most powerful way. But just keep getting that message out. I do keep track of form letters, and I know you guys have a lot of means to be able to communicate through form letters. That's fine. But I'll tell you what, a personal story means an awful lot. A personal message means an awful lot. I had a lady from our district. Won't tell you her name, but I got a letter up at the State House. It was a 3-page handwritten letter. For starters, I didn't know people still handwrote letters. So let me tell you something. I carried that letter around with me for 3 days. Because it was a handwritten letter. And I'm still writing my letter back to her, handwritten, because she took the time to handwrite me. Some people don't care about it like that. I'm maybe a little bit more sentimental with some of those things. But any way that you can to reach out to your representative and your senator and make them know exactly what you expect from them.
Michael, I think we need to open it for a Q&A at
Sure.
this point. And I think it's probably going to be through the Q&A that we get to the focus of the meeting. So
Sure.
if you have a question, and I'm not going to limit it to your topic. If you have a question for Michael, raise your hand, and I'm going to try to get everybody who has a question once before you take it on. Now, Greg, you already had your first, so we'll wait till everybody gets a chance for their question, and then if there's time, then we'll take another one. We're going to have to hold this up at about 8:15 or so.
And I will do my best. If you don't get to it, let me know. I'll hang around.
Well,
That's what I'm here for.
Well, Debbie has advised that I should be nice to you and let you leave since you're having to drive back, but we'd be glad to share a meal with you before you go. So
Indeed.
either way.
Whatever I can do to help. So where's the first hand?
Okay, Al Elliston, I saw your hand first.
Sir.
Yes. How come we never call the other side for what they are? They're not pro-choice, they're really pro-death.
So
I mean, it's more like something our president would do, and I think we need to take a...
So here's the big difference between some of us and our president, and this is a good analogy. I know Mark asked earlier, veteran hands in the room. Veteran hands in the room that remember basic training.
You can't forget it.
It's every hand up there. Basic training is a defining moment for any veteran. Just ask us, we can tell you all about it. In fact, most of us even remember it by the day. it's ingrained in who we are. There's why certain military traits transgress into civilian life and until the day you die. So political decorum is the word we use. There are protocols, traditions that are ingrained in us. For example, a couple of them real quick. In the House of Representatives in the state, that main aisle that goes right down the center to the speaker's seat, if there's somebody sitting in that seat, it is an absolute no-no to ever be in that aisle. Why? I don't know. It's just the rule. And just like those vets that have been through basic training, sometimes you didn't ask questions, you just did what you were told. The one to your point, we also don't address one another by name. The previous representative was wrong. I can say that. But from the House floor, from the well, I can't say Representative Jim Ward kills our children. It's a no-no. Now, the difference though, to your point, our president, and this is why I love our president, he doesn't have that background. He's a businessman and he's just going to call it the way he calls it. And that's why I like him. He doesn't care about offending somebody. He doesn't care about the protocol. He doesn't care about the decorum. He's going to tell you what he thinks. And you're right, more of us should, but we go back and forth, and you know, as an elected official, you're always on. It's a 24/7 button. Being able to disconnect is actually quite tough. In fact, I was visiting with with another elected official last night, and they were showing me a whole bunch of pictures that other constituents around the city had taken of me over the last year at different functions, restaurants, out in public, things I didn't even know. I'm like, I had to think for a while to try to remember what that picture was even from, because we're always on. So it's not right that we're that polite, but to be fair, I will tell you, not every Democrat is against this amendment. Now, every Democrat may vote against it, and they should be held responsible for voting against it. But I can tell you that there's several that I know that really do support this. And the fact that they're afraid of their upcoming election does give me great disappointment in that. Sir?
Yeah, we have a sitting governor who only got 48% of the vote. Other states avoid this problem by having runoff elections. Why are our state legislatures as smart as those other states?
Most people would use this word as a negative word, and it could be negative in this context. We're not that progressive. And I'm not saying that in a way to say that we should. I'm saying we're very traditional in our value system and in our processes. Most people who don't understand Kansas state history, some of you may understand it. When Kansas was founded, there was a reason we called it the Wild West. We didn't want anybody telling us what to do. We wanted autonomy. We wanted to be the deciders of our future, and that's why we've got 105 counties, and last count 228 school districts, and I think 250 some state agencies that are spending your tax dollars. We kind of created that mess on our own, and it's going to take some time to fix it. But to your point, it should be something to at least discuss. Even if it is a progressive idea, let's have a discussion. It would be a good idea, it could be a bad idea, but at least talk about it.
Well, you were talking about 50% plus one vote.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't have that. She has no moral authority
She
whatsoever.
does, so keep in mind, 48%, what we like to say, she does not have a referendum to lead this state. Half of this state did not vote for you.
Over half.
Over half. And quite honestly, I think you might be surprised to see whether she even tries to run for re-election. Her approval ratings, if anybody hasn't been tracking them, actually just dipped down again. But depending on whether you believe the polls or not, polls weren't very favorable to our president, and that's one reason I don't trust the polls very much anymore, regardless of which direction they say.
Next question? Oh, come on, nobody has hand? All right, go ahead, over here. Glenn?
I'd read earlier on that the decision of the Supreme Court would open up some of the criminal cases of the past, the Carter brothers and stuff like that. Will this amendment affect that at all?
No. For those that haven't read it, and I apologize, I don't have an actual copy in front of me, so please don't quote me anywhere, but the gist of the legislation says, or not the legislation, the amendment says that the power to regulate the abortion industry shall be reserved to the legislature to include cases of rape, incest, and I think abuse. Probably a little bit more language in there, but it's very narrowly defined that it's a legislative power. For the record, I think the same amendment should exist for the K-12. Well, relatively the same amendment even for the judicial. I'm a supporter of judicial selection by Senate confirmation. I don't like these backroom deals and the governor and a few attorneys get to decide who's are going to be our
Maybe we'll
judges.
learn how to do something and fix the education and fix the courts.
Indeed.
Would be
Now,
great.
I don't want to say really good things about her because there's a lot of bad things to say, but the new Chief Justice, her name's Marla, actually, let's talk about Chief Justice for a second. This is how backwards the judicial system is. Does anybody want to take a guess how you select the Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court?
You gotta talk to the Bar Association first, right?
No. Any other ideas? I love this one.
She's not elected like the others.
No. The Chief Justice of the Kansas Supreme Court is the person who's been there the longest. Period. That's just the way it works. So when the current one leaves, whoever's been there the longest becomes the Chief Justice. Not based on merit, not based on qualifications or skill, not based on the Bar Association, not even based on a vote. Anybody who's been on a city council or a county commission, you know that you vote your leadership, your chairs in by the body. I mean, the Speaker of the House, Ron Reichman, the body of the House elects him, or somebody else for that matter, whichever the case might be, but we elect our Speaker. The Senate elects the Senate President, but not the Kansas Supreme Court. It's just whoever's been there longest. And for the record, I'm pretty confident, I think I got this spot on, we've never not retained a judge. Any judge who has stood for retention.
There's one.
Is there one?
Yeah, it was way back 15 or 20 years ago, and he had some horrible crime that he committed just before the election, and there was one judge.
One judge?
That was not.
It's
was
near
like
impossible to.
a gross situation.
I mean, we couldn't get rid of the Carr brothers. But your question, no, the amendment doesn't affect the Carr brothers.
Bad judges have been retained.
Commissioner O'Donnell's telling me that the dead ones have to.
Yes.
Definitely has to be Democrat because, Democrats are the ones that vote when they're dead.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take it. Do you have a question, James?
Yeah, I think
Go
the
ahead.
amendment shows one thing, that the courts are interfering with our laws too much.
They're legislating from the bench. They're not the legislature.
We
They're
used
supposed
be
to
ruled
interpret
by
our laws.
by the legislature, and the courts unfortunately usurp their authority, and now they're legislating our law instead of the legislature.
Indeed.
And
That's why
hopefully
we
this
need
will
to change
be just
that.
the start of getting rid of that.
This will be a good test for them.
Michael, I hate to ruin such a nice flow. You've been great. I really appreciate everything you said so far. I want to play I'm the devil's advocate this time.
Okay.
I'm going to play Democrat here and say, Michael, you shouldn't even be in the 85th House because you don't live there and you cheated on your residents and you ran against somebody else in another district and then bingo, zippo, flippo, floppo, here you are getting appointed to replace a representative from the 85th. And how did you change residents so fast and why are you even allowed to serve? That's the
So
Democrats.
the wonderful thing, transparency is beautiful. So public record is where you start because public record is the one thing that you can't do a whole lot to manipulate because it's public. So when I adopted Chaz in 2005, I met him in 2004. I adopted him in 2005. At that point, I was just living in a small house and was obviously accommodating for one person. And I needed a house that was going to be able to raise a child. And so my very first home, my very first VA home loan, I had to use that VA home loan benefit, was in the 85th District at 3103 North Governor Street. Public record shows it. As all the time. However, people like to make issues about it, and there's always an explanation. The question is whether you assume or you ask. So you asked, you didn't make an assumption. So the ask on it's real simple. Chaz graduated high school in 2016. Anybody that can follow the calendar should be able to go back and look. When he graduated in 2016, he moved off to college. Dad had a almost 2,500 square foot house that was my house now, and my house alone except for the cat. And after having raised a boy and all of his friends in that house for the preceding 12-some years, it needed a little bit of work. So I hired some contractors to fix the foundation, roof, a whole bunch of remodeling on the inside, and just wasn't habitable for 9, 10 months, something like that. And so I lived with a friend of mine in the downtown area, and kind of enjoyed it, and realized that Chaz had gone off to college, and I didn't know, even though doing the repair work, didn't know whether I really needed to go back or not. I thought I'd actually put the house on the market. Actually, I did put the house on the market. I thought about leasing it out, a bunch of different things while it was being remodeled. And so at that time, in 16, I ran on the ballot in the 95th district, which was in more central downtown Wichita, because I wasn't living in the 85th at that moment. The house wasn't really habitable at that point. Also didn't help that one of the contractors burst a pipe in the basement and put about 4 inches of water down there. But
This house is in the 85th.
my house is in the 85th, yes.
You know, your question's answered, you don't need to spend more time. If the house you raised Chaz in is in the 85th district, you're done. I mean, that.
Well, let's put it this way. Chaz is currently working, so for those that, just transparency, about, what was it, September of last year, we bought a new house in the district, just clarify, in the district, bought a new house over off of 21st and Webb with a little bit of an upgrade. And so now Chaz's current project is he's doing some more remodel work to the governor house, because he wants to prepare for his future, and I offered to let him, as long as he pays the mortgage, I told him he could lease the house out to somebody else, because we have a new house at 21st and Webb. But the house that he grew up in is out on Governor Street, and the house that I lived in then, as well as the house I live in now.
Case closed. You can talk more about it if you want. There's nothing to that.
No, I just.
Why is that still in the media? Why is that still all over the news? I think you probably had 40 news stories on that.
Look, folks, anybody in this room should already know. The media doesn't like Republicans. The media doesn't like conservatives, even worse. Simple facts.
My next question is going to be Republican. Okay, so here, I'm going to hit you with a 1, 2, 3 here. So you got the first one. You win the first one. We had a lieutenant governor that said you were a CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, and that during the time that you were a Court Appointed Special Advocate, that you were RUD to somebody rude in a big way. And it was so terrible, I didn't get the specifics of it, but it was so terrible that the lieutenant governor of Kansas,
The
he was
governor at that time.
Yeah, okay, he was lieutenant governor, became governor, and what you had done was so egregious that he called for your resignation. Pray tell what happened.
First of all, just to clarify, the governor never called and asked a question. Remember about that ask versus assume? So, I'm going to take 5 minutes here. I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm kind of detail-oriented. But we have a 5-minute quick synopsis overview. Who knows what a CASA is? Court Appointed Special Advocate. Who's heard of it? Great. But the single greatest thing for a child in our foster care system, single greatest thing, is you're the one person who gets paid nothing to take care and advocate for one of those children that's in a foster home. Beautiful program. I'm a very big fan of it. Got assigned to a 5-year-old child that was out in Andover. The child was moved into a home. He was moved into a trailer home. Now, I had some concerns when he first got there, but things were kind of okay. The mother was a 54-year-old woman. She had 4 other children in the home at the time before he came in. One child was 5 years old, one was 10 years old, 11 years old, and 15 years old. And she wanted a 5th one, and she was a single mom, and she was 54, and she was working 2 jobs. Seemed like a little overkill, but hey, we needed a home for the child, because if anybody hasn't heard, we're short foster care homes in this state. Child gets placed in them. No problem. Life goes on. So I go visit the child twice a week. I go see him once in the school district at his school, and once at the home to see him with his siblings and with his foster mother. Things go well for about a month. About a month and a half or so into placement, we get a phone call that the 2 5-year-olds have had an inappropriate incident. We'll just leave it at that. So there's some reports that go in, and we all start reading the reports, and we're looking for safety plans of how can we prevent this from ever happening again. And so, again, remember, 5 kids, 5 boys in a trailer, and the idea was that we were going to somehow keep these 2 5-year-olds from not having contact with one another. Didn't work. Within 30 days, there was another incident. Now the alarm bells are really going off in the state because we've had 2 incidents with 2 5-year-olds in less than 30 days. So my CASA administration, people above me, the program directors, unbeknownst to me, they're researching this home while I'm still trying to tend to the child on a weekly basis. So after the second incident, my administration tells me we have a problem and we're going to intervene. We can't really tell you what happened, but we're just going to tell you now we're going to intervene and we're going to ask the judge to remove all 5 children from the home immediately. Now, I'm going to jump forward. Here's what we found out about this home. The woman, now 15 years ago, the woman was working in a mental health facility doing group sessions for sex offenders. A gentleman, I'm using this is the one name I use publicly because it's part of the public record. A gentleman by the name of Arthur Lane has had his children removed from him because he molested one of them. So Arthur Lane, as part of his treatment, is assigned to go to this mental health facility to receive treatment. Well, this foster mom, she's not a foster, she doesn't have these kids at the time, but she's working there. She's treating him and she decides she's going to foster his children. That's his red flag number 1. Okay? Fair enough. So she fosters these children. Fast forward a few more months later, this foster mom falls in love with this guy. Red flag number 2. Not only does she fall in love with him, she marries him. Red flag 3. I'm not sure how many flags I can throw out here, but we'll keep counting. So not only does she marry him, she has a child with him.
This didn't come out.
No, it didn't. And that was again, no assumption you ask. That's why I love it that there's actually cameras recording, because it will get out this way. This is the story. By the way, all this stuff is discoverable now too. So she marries the man. Still not enough. She has a child with the man, and 3 years later, he molests that child.
Surprise, surprise.
So now all the kids in the house get taken out. Well, apparently he's finally hit the mark with her, and she divorces him. He goes to prison, period of time. Fast forward about 8, 9 years later, we get to the present when I'm working with this, with the CASA and with this 5-year-old that I'm representing. We discover that Arthur Lane is living a quarter mile from this trailer. Coincidence, maybe. I don't think so, but hey, coincidences do happen. So I go to the school for my weekly visit with my little 5-year-old kiddo. And before I go out to the offender website for Kansas, and I grab a picture of Arthur Lane. And while I'm talking with my kiddo, I said, "You know who this is? Do you recognize him? Remember, this is a 5-year-old. Do you recognize him?" No. He says, no, I don't. But if anybody knows 5-year-olds, they've got to be in one another's business, because if one's getting attention, the other's got to get attention as well. Remember, I said there were 2 5-year-olds in the house, and both 5-year-olds go to the same school. The other 5-year-old quickly pipes over the shoulder and says, "I know him. That's Mommy's friend." Not Arthur. Identified him as Greg. Greg, Arthur, has been coming to the house for an indeterminate amount of time to do his laundry. So, this is what CASA discovers that leads them to request that the judge remove all the children from the home. And we do. All the children are removed. We find them temporary placements. If you follow me here, 2 weeks later, this foster mom calls and files a complaint against me. And DCF, instead of recognizing the obvious lapse in their judgment on how this woman had a license, sees a scapegoat. Now, if anybody's worked with the system, there's 3 ways that an investigation in DCF results. Either it is unsubstantiated, affirmed, or substantiated. If it's substantiated, we put you on a bad boy list, an offender list. You can't ever work in child care anywhere in the state of Kansas. You can't foster, you can't do anything. DCF didn't think that was a very smart idea. They just wanted to get rid of me because I was being a pain in their backside. So they affirmed, which means we're not going to do anything to you. We're just going to put a little mark so that you'll hopefully just go away. Than others, I fought and I fought hard. And I won. So my first appeal, I said, let's take it to appeal. The administrative hearing officer said, this is completely out of line. You don't even have your paperwork in order. You didn't conduct an investigation. I'm summarily throwing it out. History number one. Well, they weren't done. They appealed that. Now, the next level of appeal is what we call the State Appeals Committee. Most people don't know about this part. But the State Appeals Committee is made up of 3 state employees from the agency that you're appealing. In this case, the State Appeals Committee is 3 of DCF's staff. That's kind of a little rigged most of the time. Guess what? They upheld the dismissal and said, no, this was not right. Now, we're going to deviate for just a second. Let's just go with media reports for a second, because they like to paint a pretty dark, bleak image. The next appeal above the State Appeals Committee is to the district court, the public court. Now, what I like to tell people is, if what the media says is true, wouldn't you want your agency to continue the fight and appeal it further? I sure hope they would. There's a reason they don't appeal to district court. The rules of discovery apply. You're able to shine light on their otherwise dark institution. Let me tell you something. There's an agency in Topeka that does not like getting emails from me, and it's DCF. They dread those emails, and I'm hostile. Why? Because they are single-handedly responsible for the most trauma affecting the children in our state of anybody. The prisons are not even as bad as DCF is. I can tell, over the last year and a half since I took office, I've had foster families from across the state pouring in, pleading for help. I have one right now. Real life story. She's got foster kids in her home for a whole year. And for some reason, KBC, that's the northern version of St. Francis, if anybody isn't familiar, KBC calls her and says, we're taking the kids tomorrow. Well, like to the doctor? No, we're taking the kids and moving them somewhere else. Why? We're not telling you that. We're being nice telling you that we're coming tomorrow and not just showing up. So she starts setting the alarm bells off, starts calling people at DCF, calling me saying, we're traumatizing these kids. They've got no issues, no incidents, they're doing great in school, their counseling's going great. Why would you do this? So I get involved and I make a few phone calls, and she takes a phone call from one of the executive staff members yesterday at 10 a.m. Kid you not, 10 a.m. yesterday. I haven't even told you this story yet. 10 a.m. yesterday, she gets blown off by DCF that she's being paranoid about over-traumatizing the children. In less than 8 hours, she's been magically assigned 2 random home inspections. A CASA will be out the following day to check the welfare of the children. And the licensing department that's responsible for whether she gets to keep a foster license or not is going to come out tomorrow. Coincidence, I guess, or is it retaliation? Let me tell you, it's retaliation. I see it every single day. I will fight tooth and nail for our foster children the same as I fight for our unborn.
Is this the bureaucracy that's doing that, or is that the head of the SRS? We can't seem to
It's
get
both.
anybody
It's a little bit of both. Here's the problem. We shroud it in secrecy. I had the head of DCF's legal counsel tell me, we can't open any of this up. The federal law says we can't. And I said, show me the federal law. Well, that took about 2 weeks to get her to show it to me. Finally, she sent it to me, and I read it. And I said, wait a minute. The federal law says the legislature of the states shall do whatever they need to share information about their children for the betterment of their children. It says it in the federal statute that we're supposed to be sharing information. So I introduced a bill this year. Hopefully we'll hear about it real soon. It does not cost the taxpayer 1 penny. but it does create some accountability. In no uncertain terms, it simply says our law enforcement officers can access the DCF databases. Who's heard of Zaden Jovanovic? You remember that name? From April of last year, it was a 2-year-old child found in a crib that had been dead for 3 days. South Wichita. Sorry for those that are South Wichita people. South Wichita. Zaden Jovanovic, 2 years old, found dead in his crib, had been there for 3 days. Here's the problem. DCF had 21 reports of abuse on that home. 21! And they never taken the children. But even more alarming, Wichita Police Department had been there 16 times and they didn't know there was a child in the house. In fact, I spoke with the officer who finally discovered what was going on. They'd been called out there for the 16th time on a domestic violence. Normally, the previous time domestic violence calls would come in, they'd come there and the mom and the dad would be in the front yard yelling or screaming or whatever, and they'd do whatever they do and off they go. Nobody's new in the house. Well, this time there's nobody in the yard, they go up, guy answers the door. Is your wife there? No, she's not here right now. She walked down the street to quick trip to get some milk for the kids. Okay. Shut the door. They get back in their car. They're driving away when the light bulb on the woman went off. The officer and said, he said milk for the children. Let's go back and check on the kids. And we find one dead. We do save one. We find one that's dead. And the only reason we saved, I believe the only reason we saved the other one is because he said, down the street, milk for the children. And it tipped them off. They didn't know there were kids in the house. We trust law enforcement with the most sensitive information to investigate the worst of our crimes, but yet they can't know about our children?
That's a good, I hope that passes.
I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that our foster children are protected. There's over 7,000 of them in the state, and it's growing. Substance abuse is by far the worst element of it. Wish I could say there was an easy answer to that. But it doesn't change the fact that these children deserve a childhood. They deserve the opportunity to grow up and have a normal childhood and into their adulthood. They're the future. 7,000 kids. And actually, the current number is like 7,600, almost 7,700. I will continue to introduce legislation to protect those children. And the first step is to let law enforcement put light on the super secret databases that DCF keeps. Because I trust law enforcement over DCF.
It helped if we got rid
Oh,
of
where? Well, actually, what's
Title 4B and CAPTA.
What's that?
It would help tremendously if we got rid of Title 4B and CAPTA, which is the big $1 billion
Yes.
child trafficking.
It is. And that opens up another Pandora box for another day, but you are correct, and feel free to chat with me on that one because I have opinions there. The rude part is, as I said before, this foster mother that had my CASA kiddo, 2 weeks after she's been found unfit and had all her kids removed, magically decides that she's going to file a report. Keep in mind, anybody that a mandated reporter in here? None? Mandated reporters include your teachers, nurses, some clergy, some counselors, along with CASAs and social workers, etc. If they suspect there's any issues, any abuse occurring, they're required to turn it in. Bus drivers are even required to turn it in. Okay? So first of all, if this woman actually even remotely was being truthful, she called in 2 weeks later. She hasn't even had the kids for 2 weeks now. And then there's the one thing that really is the vindicating piece is I'm smart enough when I'm working in the foster care system, whether it was with the CASA kid or anybody else, you're never alone with the kids. Because I'm going to be honest, these kids are traumatized. And so sometimes they learn how to work the system too. Just like this foster mother did. So the first thing you do to be safe is you make sure you're never alone. 2-person integrity. TPI. Always make sure you have somebody else. So if the allegations that this mother wanted to make were true, she's complicit because she had to be in the room. The reality is it was completely an unfabricated report, or it was a completely fabricated report. There was retaliation because she had lost those children. Because guess what? We did some math. She was working at the El Dorado Mental Health Facility, and she had put on her recent licensing app that she makes $54,000 a year. She had to disclose that. The 5 kiddos that she was fostering, she was making just short of $70,000 a year on compensation from the state of Kansas. $68,000. $68,000 plus $54,000. You can do the math real quickly. Well, I just took $68,000 out of her pocket because I had those children placed somewhere else. Yeah, probably did make her pretty upset, and probably would give a pretty good justification for retaliation.
Okay, you win too. If you don't mind, Lauren, I'm going to go ahead and I'll give you the last question here, but I got one more.
Go for it.
Mike, we understand that we had a mayoral election in 2019 in Wichita.
Yep.
And that during that election, in much the same way as Dick Tracy or somebody with a flashlight in the middle of the night in dark corners and in places where people don't have access, that you had a person working for you who was coached to act on a videotape and to say things that weren't true, and when she didn't know that she was being anything but an actor, and then that tape was released and caused tremendous harm to one of the candidates running for mayor, and it was all your fault. Because you were the guy with the flashlight and a little black band around your eyes, I think, or something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but I know you were the one holding the flashlight.
So let's go with how we want to say it. First of all, there's an active lawsuit everybody knows about, and because the media all over the place. The great thing is 2 things. Well, first of all, before I even start that, I'm a very principled individual, and the great thing about recordings is, as you said, they last forever. So I can say this in an open forum because I'm comfortable with it being on the record. If I'm found to lie, any person has any right to ask for the resignation. Because if you can't trust your public official to be truthful, they don't deserve the trust. 101. Having placed that onto the table and into that permanent archived record, I can say with complete confidence, I'm neither John Doe 1 nor John Doe 2, nor did I have anything to do with the production of that video, nor did I have anything to do with the promotion of that video. Here's my guilt. I knew about it. I had somebody that came to me wanted an opinion from me about it. I get requests for opinions all the time. And I wasn't an advocate for it. I've had some that said, well, your knowledge is bad enough. Now, you'd be surprised the knowledge of some of the things that come across the legislator's desk. I will tell you that in the next week to 3 weeks, keep an eye out. Depositions are being taken in court. For those that aren't familiar with a deposition, those are sworn testimony subject to perjury. By the way, I'm not giving one. It's not yet. I have no reason to. But if they wanted one, they're welcome to it. Those depositions are public record. Now, the public's not allowed to watch the deposition because that's not the way the court works. But the deposition itself will be released to the public. And I'm very comfortable with those depositions and where they go. There's an individual who is trying to scapegoat himself, or not scapegoat himself. He's trying to find somebody to blame. And one thing I'm very comfortable with in this world is that the truth does come out. You remember when I was asked about that video some time back, I said, nothing in politics stays secret. It all does come out. Whether it comes out today, tomorrow, next week, it will come out. I've been asked why the knowledge that I haven't openly shared. One simple reason. I'm a very principled individual. I indicated to the people that are involved that will be exposed that it's not my place to expose them. It's not my job. Truth will come out. And I'm willing to wait for that truth to come out. But again, to say what I started with again, you find out that I'm actually the person behind that video, feel free to ask my resignation.
Last question goes to Lauren.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how is DCFA going to be away with all the senior center? How are we going to
good question.
That's a good question.
You have really
That's a good question.
opened our eyes about
So,
LCS.
well, and when you speak, I do completely separate topics strictly on this subject because it's so passionate. Without getting too far into the weeds, if you came into my office, you would see about 30-some books on my bookshelf, and they're the statutes of the state of Kansas laws. And they're broken down into what we call chapters. Not to get into the weeds, we've got this thing called Chapter 38. Pretty sure. It's the Child in Need of Care chapter, also known as the Foster Care chapter. We have this weird law in Kansas, and I'm sure other states have it too, and it's a problem. It says that the SINC, the Child in Need of Care law, trumps all laws in the state of Kansas. Period. Just that simple. Okay, add on top of that that there are statutes in that same chapter that say all of the proceedings of a SINC case are confidential, closed to the public, not open to scrutiny. I could go on, but you ask how they can? That's exactly how they can. So that moves to the next piece here. I have another piece of legislation. I'm still drafting it. It's not done yet. A judicial oversight bill. So I went to a case because I had a constituent call me about their child being, in my words, stolen from them. And so I said, well, I'm going to go to court with you on such and such date. So I went in, put my suit on just like I am today, and reached in. And, we're going to make sure that we're doing things on the official line here. So I even reached in and grabbed that fancy little name badge there and walked into that courtroom, and I sat down in the gallery, very nice and proper. The judge comes in, opens the court up. Attorney from DCF stands up. She knows her name, by the way. Your Honor, this is a closed proceeding. I ask that you clear the gallery, or the galley. Judge says, everybody in the galley, please identify yourself. So I stood up and I said, Representative Michael Capps, appearing in my official capacity. Official or not, get out.
Yeah.
The judge said?
The judge said it. I said, yes, sir. And I walked out. A couple of days later, that afternoon, I called the judge and I said, we should chat. So I went into his office. He had two people with him to make sure that they were taking impeccable notes of me because he obviously knew I was not happy. I just said, Your Honor, I'm not even here to talk about the case. I said, I understand that you closed your courtroom. I'd like to know your statutory authority or whether you have it or not. No statutory. Okay. Could I have the statutory number? I have a statute number. I got all these books on my shelf so I can go look it up. So he rambles off the number to me. I go back to my office. I looked it up, and sure enough, that statute doesn't say anything about closing your courtroom. So I emailed him. I wound up having to email him about 6 times before he responds, saying, help me understand, the statute doesn't say you can close it. Finally, he responds and says, Representative, you're right. I agree with your interpretation of the statute. I just think it's the way we've always done it. It's the way I'm going to keep doing it. Thank you. That's really what I needed to say. I just had to get there. So this bill that I'm drafting, the judicial oversight bill, says nothing more than this. That the state legislature, being a separate and equal branch to the judiciary, no member of the legislature shall be denied the ability to observe. We can't interfere. We can't speak. We can't be involved. We strictly can observe. Why would you do that? Well, let's hear. We're the ones passing these laws. You've sent us up there to pass laws. The fewer the better, but you still send us up there to do it. And so this would be the legislature's ability to observe how the judges are applying the laws that we have passed.
I hope that bill passes too.
They are terrified that bill's coming.
They hate court
They
watchers.
need it. They
I can
need
tell you about my case with Judge Anthony Powell. That was scum.
So in a nutshell, we're talking about transparency, we're talking about accountability, and the summation is, I can't tell you how much of an honor or privilege it is to serve. It is a tough job. I signed up for it, and I'm very much honored and privileged that I have that opportunity. I did file for re-election for 2020, and I look forward to serving for another 2 years.
Okay, you get the last question.
The very last.
The very last question.
This is more rhetorical than anything else, but the 2019 DCF policy and procedure manual is 794 pages long.
And they don't follow it. 794 pages and they just say it's for guidance.
And the first 20 pages of that is just the table of contents. And I don't know if they're coming with revised 2021 or not.
I stopped paying attention if they revise it because they don't follow it.
That's true.
Michael, in my opinion, you won 3 out of 3 here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
really appreciate you taking the time to come down there. I thought you would probably win 3 out of 3, but I didn't know that you would just blast them out of the ballpark. This is ridiculous. I
Truth is
believe it.
everything.
I mean, I believe it, but wow. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
No, thank you for asking.
Well, I just
Don't
you know,
assume, thank you for asking.
Well,
That's all somebody's got to do. That's what I do. I try not to assume, I ask.
I really appreciate you being here. Let's give Michael a Okay. All right. As Debbie has recommended, and I've learned my life goes a lot better if I take Debbie's recommendations. She's the secretary of this group. You are free to leave if you want to. On the other hand, if you'd like to stay and eat, I'd be glad to buy your table.
Well, I bought my meal, but I'm more than welcome to hang around with y'all for a little while in case there's any last minute
I
questions.
think Greg had something to talk about Judge Powell. I kind of want to hear an update on that myself, but let's do that after we adjourn. Old business. I did look for a new meeting place. Now, we lucked out here tonight. We had the ice maker noise a little bit, but if you want to see how bad it can be, the video that Brian put up of the last week's, or September's meeting, is what it was, that there was so much noise on there, it's embarrassing. It's like, okay, if we haven't figured out we need another place because of that, they're either going to fix that or we're going to leave. I don't like this noise. We lucked out tonight. You did good. So, well, we have been here, but people are saying it costs too much to come. I got 25 people here tonight. It looks pretty good. With weather this bad, I'm lucky to have 25.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. You are. Thank you. Thank you. That's appropriately said. So anyway, I looked at Ours Family Restaurant. It used to be Furs, spelled F-U-R-R-S, a nationwide chain, and some Vietnamese bought it. This is 10 years ago, 8 or 10 years ago, and they're very economical, and when they changed the sign, they just took the F off and put an O. So they changed the F to an O, the big O, and instead of the big F, and that's how we came up with the word Ours. So that everything else, family, restaurant, all that's the same. So at a fraction of the cost, they changed the sign, and so that's how it became Ours Family Restaurant. The food is excellent. I eat there whenever I get a chance. But they're changing. This one, when we would change, they have a nice meeting room. It seats a few more people in this, and since we're trying to get some congressional level people for some of our future meetings here, if we had Chris Kobach with or without an opponent or two, we would need a bigger room than this. That is somewhat bigger, not twice as big, but about maybe time and a half. The problem is they are going with only on Thursday nights, they're doing away with the buffet, and they're only ordering off the menu. I think people have grown to like to go up and fill your plate again and again and again. When the speakers get longer and longer and longer, you fill your plate again and again. That's a pretty neat deal. If you have to order off to the menu, I don't know that. Well, I kind of want to hear from you on that. What's your, if they do switch in February to Thursday nights menu only, would you still want to go there or not? For a meeting room a little bigger than this?
It's a better place, in my opinion. I think the food here is better, and who can't beat a buffet?
No, I think the buffet. I think the buffet it's a deal breaker for me.
Hearing is the
Any other comments on that?
Hearing.
Stay here.
I said hearing's the
We still
problem.
have a lot of noise.
I'm gonna if I can take care of that, then if I can get a PA as well, but whatever. We're gonna have to improve. We're not gonna continue on. Brian, say what you want to say.
If we're considering a new place, I'd recommend giving people a chance to try it out after it's
Yeah, there you
recommended.
go. That's a great idea. Let's not vote on this now since we can't do anything until March. So because they're gonna only start this in February. Why don't you guys go up, if you haven't seen it, it's on Harry Street. Check the location out. It's the Harry Street Mall. Right across from, there's some fast food like Burger King there and so on. It's at Harry between Oliver and Hillside.
Isn't it out by the old Wichita Mall?
Yes, right in that shopping center, kind of off to the edge. George, what is it called, Washington Village Retirement Center is in the back there, and half of their clientele comes from that Washington Village. And but it's a very nice meeting room. It looks nice, and the banner would go well there and everything, but they want to keep us here, and they've offered to match or lower the price to match whatever our family restaurant is. The problem is we're talking pennies. They're so
Trade
close.
price for moving this table away from it.
Yeah, well, the price, it's not going to be a big deal on price because it's going to be about the same price either way. Within 50 cents.
You know, one thing very important, in my eyes at least, being a veteran, is Golden Cross supports veterans, have free veterans meal on
That's
Veterans
true.
Day.
Good point, Greg.
The other place don't. So
Well
that
taken.
alone.
Well
goes
taken.
on the water.
Point well taken, Greg. I will remember that. That's a good point. Okay, we've got a couple of announcements. If you want to become a KRA member, anybody in the legislature, anybody anywhere, we do endorsements. KFL has stumbled a little bit on their endorsements, and we are going to fix that. And until we get that fixed, we need other conservative groups to be endorsing again like we did years ago. And, we endorse our members. We'd love to have you. We have a Lincoln membership for $100. That's a supporting membership. Obviously, the membership's here, so you don't forget it. $10, you're in for a year. Come on, you can't beat that. $10 a year. $25 gives you 3 years. That's the economy plan. Or if you want, then we have 3 supporting memberships. We have the Lincoln plan at $100. We have about a dozen people have done that. We have a Reagan membership. Only one person did that once. And then we have the Team Trump, and nobody's done that one yet. So that's $1,000. So I'm looking for that one. In fact, I might get that, but so far nobody on that one. So anyway, we need the money. You saw the treasurer's report was we're down to our running on empty almost on the checking account. So, but your check will be good, Brian. Don't worry about it. We'll have $69
I forgot to do the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to keep a better close look at that. Okay, so Wichita Packner Club, you've all heard of that. I am one of the founding members of that years ago. Meets at noon on Fridays on the 9th floor of the Ruffin Building. That's the building that was called Bank of America years ago. If you've never eaten there, you're my guest the first time, $12, it's on me. But after that, you can join to come. But if you haven't had a free meal off me at the Packner, I think I'm still the #1 recruiter of new people to the Packner Club. So I used to be president of that club too. Anyway, that's tomorrow. I looked it up just for kicks and grins. Tomorrow's speaker is talking about the SRS here, giving kids a fighting chance, followed by the Kansas Policy Institute's photojournalist named Paul Suter. A lot of people know Paul. He's a good guy, great guy. Okay, item number O, KCFL, my group, the Kansas Coalition for Life. We need on-site help, especially on Mondays and Thursdays. Now, I will let you know this, your opponent, about 6 or 8 months ago, signed up and has been taking a shift once in a while. So good for him.
Very good. We need more of that.
We do. The next KRA meeting will be on February 20th. It's an early one, right here at the Golden Corral. So don't go on your own time sometime. Go look at Ours Family Restaurant. And next meeting is right here on February 20th. And with that, we have, well, go ahead, Myron. Oh, thank you, Myron. Thank you, Myron. Real important. Stand up, Myron. Stand up, Greg. These two people are doing something that I had the time I would be doing, and we dedicated a meeting to Century 2, and these two people are collecting signatures to save Century 2, and I encourage everybody to sign that.
Yeah, right. Greg, turn around so you can see on the camera there, and let's give them a hand. Please.
Thank you for collecting.
This is how we're fundraising. We sell these t-shirts for $20. If you stop by, the office is at 435 North Broadway. If you stop by and pick up one, it's $20. She asks for $5 shipping if you mail in the form.
So thank you.
I have a petition here. Anybody that qualifies and wants to sign it, I'll stay and get those signatures. Very good.
Thank you again, Greg and Myron. Thank you again. Okay, with that, I will have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. James Hodges is moving that we adjourn. We have a second from Myron. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.